Hey, and welcome back to the shop. Today I'm going to be jumping back into this little beastie. I started this about a year and a half ago. There is a build log on DIYGokarts.com. I'll post a link in the description below. Obviously this is not stock. I've stretched the forks by, well, that much. I've raked the frame to suit the forks, stretched the frame. None of this is original, as I said. If you go have a look on the build log, you'll see how much has been done to this already. But for now, my main concern is the drivetrain. As you can see, this engine here, the clutch is on this side, but have a look at the back wheel, the sprocket is on the opposite side. And this is a coaster sprocket, which means I can't just turn the wheel around. I mean, that'd create all sorts of headaches, like I'd have to move the brake caliper. Yeah, that's just not going to help. So, easiest, simplest way to do it is a jack shaft. So what I've come up with is a couple of sprockets on a shaft, and this started out as 19mm cold rolled steel, and you can see there I've bored the sprockets both out to 14mm or 9/16, whatever, and turn the shaft down to that size. And at the end there, you probably notice there's another step down. That is, as you probably just saw, to fit the bearings. So they go on there like that, and then that goes around the other way. Whoop. That goes in there like that on bearing hangers. Now, bearing hangers, what am I going to do there? Well, first up, you can see here there's this plate here that holds the bolt for the swing arm. That connects up to there somehow. Yep, I'll just show that again because that wasn't quite on camera. That goes into there, and it has these two locators here on the end. They're not moving at the moment because that's actually under tension, because come around here you'll see that's bent. Alright, so basically what I need to do is heat up here so it'll pull this back in straight, and then I'm going to weld these little pieces here onto the front so it extends out this way. There's two of them, there's another one there somewhere. And there will be, and then there'll be a hole drilled and tapped in there. No, that won't be tapped, it'll just be drilled. And then I've turned up two of these little cups. Those are for the bearings. That sits on the bearing, and as you can see, the shaft is pretty much parallel with the end of the bearing, so there's plenty of clearance behind it. And then that cup gets welded onto that plate about there. That hole there, again, there'll be a hole drilled in this end. Which means those two bolt together. So they're going something like that. But this hole here is to fit on there. Can't do it at the moment, but there. So that fits over there. That fits pretty much like there, but down there. And those two will bolt together. That'll be welded on there. On there. So what I need to do now, I've already got one set up. I need to weld the cups onto the plate. So, as I said, this one's set up. I'm just going to throw a few tacks on that, just to hold it in place, so then I can set up the other one. So I've tacked that one in place. Now, I'm going to measure from the edge of the cup to the edge of that hole. And that to me looks like about, of course, 18.5 millimeters. So now I need to set this one at about the same point. It's got to be close, but I suppose it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. I also need to get the height right, so that, of course, it moved. Okay, let's do this the smart way. Sharpie. Okay, so now about 18.5 mil. So it needs to be right on the edge of that, and about there. Alright, so now I'm just going to go and lightly tack that, because if I have to move it, I don't want to be grinding for 20 minutes trying to break the tacks. And here we are. Now, to the naked eye, yeah, that looks pretty close. And I must confess, I sort of messed up because I welded it on the wrong side. Why the wrong side? Well, these holes, they're slightly off center. You see, if I put them back to back, you can see they don't line up. Or maybe you can't. But that way, they are perfectly aligned. So I started off putting it on the wrong side, so then I had to cut it off, turn it over, start again. But you can see there now I've got those two in line, and so they're pretty close. I'm going to say they're within a millimetre in both directions, both in height and in length, so that's close enough. Another small thing I need to do, you notice on this end here, this is the rear swing arm. You notice here, this tube overhangs the swing arm. There's a bit of a lip there, so the bearing plate can sit there, no problem. However, on the other end, there's quite a bit of underhang, as it were. So basically what I need to do is slit along here and cut a piece out of there so that I can then move this sidewall further in so it'll clear this end, and obviously then weld it back together. So I'm going to jump on that. I won't show you the whole process, but I'll show you the steps. Well, there you can see I've cut the chunk out there, and the same on the other side. Now, basically just going to push that in, tack it on the ends, and shape it and weld it as I go. Let's see how that turns out. There it is, in pretty much in place. So I've got a bit of a lip there at the end now, and I've just used a piece of scrap to push that in. Now I'm just going to tack it. Let's see what happens when I release the clamp. Oh, look at that, it stays in place. Alright, so now I don't have to worry about welding that onto there. I just go along and weld all that up. We'll be good to go. Well, good news and bad news here. I've made the chain to fit from the jack shaft to the wheel sprocket. That works okay, and it's perfectly lined up. No, I didn't plan that. Of course not. The one problem I do have is to make the chain the right length so I didn't have to use a half link. That's where it needs to sit. Now, I was going to make up a set of adjusters, but luckily I was searching around in my parts and look what I found. So I'm going to whack them on. The biggest issue here is that with the wheel in that position, like, so all the way forward, it's a half link. So that's where it needed to be to have a full link. Problem arises when we come over to this side of the wheel. The brake disc and obviously the brake caliper. Now, have a look. That's not biting by much. See, there's the edge of the disc in there. So there's very little of the pad that's contacting. Problem is, that's bolted onto an existing bracket. So I didn't want to have to do this, but that means cutting that bracket off and moving it back. Alright, so I cut that bracket off. Yeah. And then what I did was, I got a piece of wire. Yeah, just a piece of solid wire. And that runs through the top of the caliper. That gives me clearance on the disc. Alright, it runs all the way through. There it is, down there. There it is. Then, using another piece of the same wire, I clamp the caliper onto the disc. So that's all fixed. Then, I just kept... Oh, where are we? There we go. I put it on the belt sander, and I just kept cutting down that bottom edge until, well, it sat there. Now I know it's in the right location on the disc. The disc is bolted to the bracket. Now the bracket is on the correct location on the swing arm. Now I just weld that back on. It's good to go. Well, there we go, the engine in position. It's not bolted down yet. There's bolts in the holes, but they're just loose in there, just for positioning. Jack shaft's in. Now, one tiny little problem down here. Come on, focus, focus. There you go, you see that? The chain is rubbing. Just cut. There we go. Chain's clear now. Well, here's the drivetrain all mocked up. Engine, back to the jack shaft, across the jack shaft, down to the back wheel. Now, I did have to take this all apart and cut another 3mm into here to move this sprocket over, because they didn't line up properly. Put a straight edge up across the back of this, and that was about 3mm over. So now it looks good. Brake caliper's in the right place, it looks good, everything looks good. Now to do everything else.